There are truths a man doesn't grasp at 20, begins to understand at 30, and only truly feels once the price has already been paid in full. Modern relationships promise us so much: ease, freedom, endless choice, the comforting sense that someone better is always one swipe away. But behind all that shine hide quiet laws that no one ever says out loud. They aren't written in any book handed to us as boys, and almost every man learns them the hard way, in hindsight, when the lesson can no longer change what already happened. We step into love with our heads full of borrowed scripts, films we watched, promises we overheard, illusions we never thought to question, and then we collide with a reality no one prepared us for. So today we'll speak honestly about 5 harsh truths of modern love. Not to wound you and not to make you bitter, but so that you might see them clearly while there is still time, before they arrive, uninvited, to see you. Let's begin with the first, and the one most men resist the longest. The first truth is this: you are chosen for who you are right now, not for your potential. A man loves to live in the future tense. He talks about who he'll become, what he'll build, how everything will be different once the timing is right. He asks quietly to be believed in on the strength of a promise. But the person beside him doesn't share a life with his promise. She shares a life with the man who is actually present today, in the ordinary hours, the dull evenings, the unremarkable mornings that make up almost everything. Potential is a strange currency, real enough to feel, yet impossible to spend. You can feed a relationship for years on the hope that one day I'll finally become the man I mean to be, but love is never extended on credit against your future accomplishments. It's fed by what you actually bring to the table now: your attention, your steadiness, your presence, your maturity. And a man tends to understand this far too late. He understands it the moment she finally leaves, still quietly waiting on a tomorrow that he kept promising but never arrived. The second truth: love is not an eternal feeling but a daily choice. The passion that everything begins with is blinding, intoxicating, and in the beginning it feels like it could never possibly end. But passion was never meant to be a foundation, it's a spark. And every spark, by its very nature, eventually burns down. What you build in the place where that fire used to be is what decides whether anything survives at all. And almost no one is honestly prepared for that quiet, unglamorous transition. When the early euphoria fades, a great many people conclude that love itself has died, so they go chasing the next flash of intensity again and again, never once seeing the pattern they're repeating. But mature love begins precisely where the intoxication ends, in the quiet, deliberate, sometimes difficult choice to stay. To love, in the end, is a verb, not a mood. It is something you do on the days you feel it, and especially on the days you don't. It is not something that simply happens to you and then leaves. The third truth is, harder still, you cannot save another person with your love. A man is powerfully drawn to the role of the rescuer. He meets a wounded soul, sees the pain behind their eyes, and quietly believes that his warmth, his patience, his sheer devotion will be enough to heal them. He confuses love with a mission and rescue with intimacy, and so he pours himself out, completely and without measure, into someone who is not yet ready, and may never be ready, to heal their own wounds themselves. But no one is ever healed by another person's hands. A human being changes only when they themselves decide to, not a moment sooner, and never simply for your sake, no matter how much you give. You can love someone with the whole of your heart and still stand utterly powerless before their pain. And a man can burn himself down to ash trying to fill another person's emptiness, until one gray morning he finally notices that he has quietly hollowed out his own self in the process, and has nothing left. The fourth truth: relationships do not cure the emptiness inside you, they expose it. We come to another person secretly hoping they will close the hole within us. We want them to fill our loneliness, silence our restless anxiety, and hand us the sense of worth we couldn't give ourselves. Without ever admitting it, we turn love into a medicine meant to fix what aches in us. And it is right here, in this quiet transaction, that the most destructive dependency of all is born. But another person is not a foundation to stand on. They are a mirror. They don't fill your emptiness. They reflect it straight back at you, and they magnify it. Everything you have refused to face within yourself will, sooner or later, rise to the surface of the relationship. Whoever has not first learned to be whole in their own company brings into intimacy not love but hunger, and that kind of bottomless hunger can never ever be satisfied by another human being. The fifth truth is the quietest and perhaps the cruelest. Respect dies more silently than love, but its loss is what destroys everything. We're taught to fear betrayals, screaming arguments, dramatic catastrophes, but in reality, most bonds perish without a single sound. They die in small dismissals, in words spoken from above in a tone just slightly too cold, in 1,000 ordinary moments where dignity could have been chosen and indifference was chosen instead again and again. Love can survive a quarrel. It cannot survive contempt. When respect quietly drains away, the mutual, daily, unspoken kind that holds two people upright, all that remains is the dull habit of sharing a space. Two strangers, polite and distant, moving through the same rooms. And a man understands this far too late. It is rarely some great, cinematic betrayal that kills a love. It is the slow, accumulated, unnoticed disrespect for the very person standing right beside him. So what binds all five of these truths together? Every single one of them points in the same direction, inward, not at your partner, not at your circumstances, not at the cynical age we happen to live in. They point at you. The Stoics understood this long ago. We hold no real power over others, only over ourselves, our judgments, and our actions, and all genuine maturity in love begins the moment you soberly accept that. So before you demand to be loved, become a man who can be loved for more than his promises. Before you rush to save someone else, stop quietly drowning yourself. Before you go searching for a person to close the emptiness inside you, do the slow work of learning to be whole on your own. The strongest relationships are never built by two drowning people desperately clinging to each other. They're built by two people who each already know how to stand firmly on their own feet. These truths sound harsh because truth itself is so rarely gentle, but there is no condemnation hidden in them. There is freedom. The man who comes to understand them in time stops waiting on love to deliver a miracle, and instead begins to build it consciously, with his eyes open, not out of the fear of being alone, not out of some gnawing inner hunger, but out of genuine fullness, out of deliberate choice, rather than aching need. Modern relationships forgive no illusions, and they punish them without mercy. But to the man who meets these truths with open eyes and an honest heart, they offer something genuinely rare, the capacity to love with real maturity, without masks, without quiet bargains, without that low hum of desperation underneath everything. So remember this and carry it with you. You will never find in another person what you have not first built within yourself. First, become whole. And to a whole man, even love itself is given on entirely different terms. There are truths a man doesn't grasp at 20, begins to understand at 30, and only truly feels once the price has already been paid in full. Modern relationships promise us so much ease,